Hey guys, welcome back to a new video. I'm Stephanie Fisher. I'm a licensed counselor here in the state of Michigan, and I'm owner and operator of In Progress Counseling. One of the things that often we work on with clients is time stamping the behavior that might be happening that's really upsetting to them. And so it goes in two directions. So let's say a client comes in and they have a lot of embarrassment around a way that they behaved or responded. And let's say there's a trauma history and we're working on, a coherent narrative, and we're working on them being equipped to kind of label their story, understand some of their activation points, grow in new skill sets. We'll call it by its name and we'll say, hey, how old were you in this particular dynamic you're talking about? And if I'm familiar with their trauma story, we can typically link it up to events that have happened. And so in my story, there's that, and I know I've said this in videos before, there's this 6-year-old overwhelmed, helpless Steph that shows up, and it's like she freezes, and then she just like raises her hand and she's like, I need an adult, someone help me, I need an adult, right? It's such a level of helplessness. My next timestamp is 15, and that's the angsty, burn stuff to the ground, how dare you person that shows up. And in my trauma story, those actually make a lot of sense in my narrative. So not just my trauma story, but in my developmental disruptions, that makes a lot of sense. And so we try to understand, hey, which Steph showed up there? Was it the really, really young, scared one? Was it the really angry one? Was there something going on that was activating because of those pieces of your story that show up? And we've talked over the last couple of videos about our stories show up wherever we go. But the education piece that's also really helpful is when we have interpersonal things that happen, and we can often timestamp other people's traumas too by watching the behavior. So let's say a friend just catches me out of the blue with some type of bad behavior. The client and I, let me say that differently. Let's say a client is here, because that's the framing we're using. A client is here and they talk about this nastiness that came towards them, this temper tantrum that came towards them, this incredible unkindness that came towards them. We'll try to timestamp it and we'll say, well, wait, what was happening there? Was it like you were talking to an 8-year-old, a 10-year-old, a 15-year-old, a 12-year-old? What was that like? And we put together an understanding of, that wasn't my friend, age 25, full prefrontal cortex, engaging with me an adult to adult. That was something activated in them that showed up in that moment. And we don't say that to excuse it. We don't even need to explain it. We're trying to make sense of, hey, what the heck just happened there? What was that? Because that came out of left field and that was like an emotional drive-by, and I don't know how to make sense of it. And so we'll look at developmentally, what did that seem like to you? Where might they have been operating from? Because they weren't in that moment operating from your adult friend self. And it came at you in ways that were really hurtful. This can be really helpful as we put together narratives. Now, typically we don't start there when we're putting together someone's life story, but over time we start to get really strong at saying, hey, what am I witnessing here? What am I experiencing there? Is this adult to adult, or was there some authority coming at me that was ill-placed that I wasn't consenting to? Was there some childish behavior showing up that was inappropriate? So was there a role, or was there an activation that was happening? Really powerful work when we slow it down and we say, hey, what was just happening there? So if I have a client come to me and someone has gone scorch earth on them and they're like, I don't know how to operate. I'm like, well, right. That sounds like you were dealing with someone significantly younger, and you don't negotiate with children quite typically. You don't negotiate with someone who's using a temper tantrum to get their point across. We put things into developmental framing and say, who showed up in that context? Is that the adult that you were dealing with, or was something else happening there? That is part of just a lengthy portion of, narrative work and trauma work that we get to do together. But often we ask, like, hey, was that an adult, or did something else show up in that moment? Did a different version, a younger version, some type of fractured version of someone show up there? Really helpful stuff.